Good evening and welcome to ITV News Meridian.
Tonight's headlines here in the south. Trains parked up and platforms empty. Day one of a three-day strike by southern drivers.
Many stayed away. One of the only services to run from Brighton to London left half empty.
Amazed, and seats. It's bizarre.
It's been incredibly disruptive. People have just absolutely had enough at the end of their tether, completely.
Also tonight, helping mankind, the dogs that could be used to diagnose prostate cancer if a new trial is successful.
And how about this for airmail? The letter Lily sent to Santa by helium balloon. But what happened when it went off course? Good evening. Train station platforms were deserted today as hundreds of thousands of the South's commuters heeded warnings and stayed away on day one of a three-day Southern rail strike.
There were also plenty of seats on replacement buses as passengers decided not to travel. Train drivers will again walk out tomorrow and Friday. In an interview today, Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn said he would join workers on the picket line because he said people are so fed up with the rail company. Well, our transport correspondent Mike Pearce was on board one of the few trains that did leave Brighton for London this morning and sent this report.
Well, of course, the disruption continues for hundreds of thousands of passengers tonight. There's another strike tomorrow and again on Friday. In one piece of breaking news tonight, things in this dispute could actually go from bad to even worse. The Executive Committee of the ASLEF Drivers Union will meet next week to consider what to do next. And they're saying it's almost likely there will be more strikes called. That's on top of another 3 days of action at the end of the month. Well, Southern did manage to run some trains today. In fact, 4 from Brighton up to Victoria, and there are 4 back tonight as well. I joined passengers on one of those trains this morning. For commuters determined to battle it in from Brighton this morning, surprised there were some Southern trains. The company say driver managers turned up for work and drove them. Most commuters had followed the advice and stayed away. This service, which left at 7, was almost deserted until it reached Croydon when the masses descended.
Surprisingly empty. I got a seat, which is an absolute bonus. But it's still, morale's still very low between all the commuters. Everyone's just absolutely had enough, essentially.
I think a lot of people have chosen other alternative means of transportation.
Delay is horrible. Government needs to do something. It's can't go on. We're innocent in all this. You know, we are innocent, and we're just being victims. You know, it's just killing us really. It's ruining family life, everything. 1,000 drivers walked out in the ongoing row about driver-only trains.
If the company puts much effort into the spin that they put into this around the negotiating table and actually want to talk to us in a real way, maybe we'd not be hurting them in the way we are today.
This was Victoria, usually packed at rush hour. The Gatwick Express was running 50% of its service, but even then was nowhere near full. After today, this week, they have just had enough. When's it going to end? What's going to resolve it?
I totally empathise with our passengers. I travel on our services every day, and we do desperately need to bring this dispute to an end. Our doors are always open to the unions to speak to us. We have made the unions some good offers that we think can move this dispute forward, and I would urge them to come back to the table because striking is not the solution to this issue.
Elsewhere, Southern laid on 200 buses to link in key stations with other train operators, like here at Chichester.
Considering that it's one every 40 minutes, so if you miss one by 1 minute like I did, you have to wait next to an hour for the next one.
Probably as I expected. The bus leaves here at 8:05 and apparently it just misses the train from Havant to 8:40.
In some respects they work better than the trains because they're on time, we get to where we need to be, and it's useful to have them, definitely.
Whereas the trains that are actually running don't always come on time.
Mike Pearce, ITV News, Brighton.
Well, more and more frustrated commuters are turning to their MPs for help over the Southern crisis.
Yes, local MPs have told us there has never been an issue where so many people have contacted them. Our political correspondent Phil Hornby is at Westminster.
Yes, the emails keep on coming from people who are just angry and from people who are desperate for their MP's help, although often the only solution will be an end to the strike. MPs say they've never known anything like it. Alongside the emails from the unions and the management, thousands from furious constituents. There's never been so much anger, so much desperation from so many people. If this was a few years ago, your desk would be full of mountains of letters, I suppose, but these days most of your correspondence comes through email.
We're getting dozens at least of emails every day on some aspect of the Southern Rail dispute.
And what sort of things are people saying?
Well, I mean, I've got some examples here I've printed off and everything as well. One really good example came in just this morning entitled Help. Tim, I've been putting up with the problems that have been occurring on Southern Network for the past 6 months, strikes, delays, etc. This has gone on for too long. I'm now in a position where I'm going to have to chuck in my career that I've been working very hard on for the past 6 years because of a dispute that has nothing to do with me. The company I work for are now starting to take a stand against people being late for work or missing a day. We're getting lots like that. People are losing their jobs, having to leave their jobs. And some companies, we now understand, are not even interviewing people who rely on Southern Rail to get into work.
I suppose what you'd like to be able to say to these correspondents is, hey, we've got a solution, but to be honest, the solution seems as far off as ever, doesn't it?
Well, I think the last few days has shown that actually there's not a lot dividing the two sides.
But there never has been, really.
This. And frankly, and when you drill down to the detail, the whole dispute seems to be over whether somebody should be a safety critical person or a safety trained person, and the difference amounts to a row of beans. This dispute has got to end. Southern Rail, I don't think, are up to running the franchise anyway, but frankly no train operator could run that franchise with a current completely unjustified, unreasonable union action, which has got to stop.
But there's no sign of that tonight. Indeed, the Labour leader, Jeremy Corbyn, today said he'd be happy to go and join a picket line to show his support for the strikers. That didn't go down very well with a lot of his MPs here. The government today have been trumpeting extra money, £300 million, to improve the track and the signals. But really none of that will impress passengers on Southern Rail until this dispute is finally settled.
Phil Hornby reporting there from Westminster. Well, day 2 of the 3-day strike is on the way tomorrow, and for the latest travel advice, just head to our website, itv.com/Meridian.
More news now from around our region, and there was drama in the skies over Bournemouth this morning as a passenger plane struck a seagull during takeoff. The Thomson Airways flight to Tenerife was seen circling over Bournemouth Airport for half an hour to burn off fuel before being diverted to Gatwick and safely landing just before 10 a.m.
A former bomb disposal expert was murdered in a garage in a dispute over an unpaid debt. That's what a court has heard. The remains of Mark Manning, who was 54, were found on land at Hampshire Hill near Slugham in May last year, 2 years after his disappearance. 40-year-old Colin Gale from Worthing denies murder but admits preventing a lawful burial. A second defendant, 51-year-old Stuart Robertson from Shoreham, denies preventing a lawful burial. The trial is due to last up to 4 weeks.
Plans to demolish a derelict shopping centre and build new shops, apartments and student flats will go before planners in Southampton this evening. The Bargate Centre closed 4 years ago. If approved, a new pedestrianised area would link the 12th century Bargate monument to Queensway and incorporate a section of the old city walls. 140 private apartments would be built, as well as accommodation for 450 students.
I think it would be an excellent idea. The Bargate is renowned in Southampton, and I think it would be nice for them to regenerate this area.
We definitely need some more student accommodation, and also need some more little individual cafes and stuff like that. Would be nice.
It'd be good to see a change down this end of the town, because this end of the town, not a lot of people actually come down because there's nothing down here, there's nothing pulling them in really.
You're watching ITV News in the Meridian region. Coming up.
Kiwi, the golden Labrador, who's going round in circles in the hope of a medical breakthrough.
And for more on all of our stories, just go to itv.com/Meridian. Remember, you can always call us, number on the screen now, or get in touch via Facebook or Twitter.
More news, and the Sussex peer Baroness Cumberledge is taking legal action against her own government to try to stop a development in the village of Newark. At a public meeting last night, she joined local residents who voted to do whatever possible to reverse a decision on 50 new houses.
this application that has been called in and approved by the Secretary of State, we believe is outside all that work that has gone on, and it actually destroys the whole logic behind the neighbourhood plan and its boundaries.
A 14-year-old boy has been given a detention and training order for offences including an arson attack on a church building in Basingstoke. The fire happened last July at St Joseph's Catholic Church in South Ham. The boy was also found guilty of 7 offences of criminal damage to property.
A couple in their 70s have been rescued from their car, which was suspended over a river near Gatwick. Their car came off the road and rolled down a steep embankment before hitting a tree over the water last Friday evening. Specialist rescue teams freed the couple. One of them needed hospital treatment.
The ITV Evening News continues with the national and international news at 6:30. Here's Mary Nightingale.
An A&E consultant tells ITV News of degrading and dangerous conditions in some NHS hospitals. New figures reveal the number of patients waiting more than 12 hours on trolleys for treatment has doubled in 2 years. Jeremy Corbyn calls for a maximum cap on pay and faces questions on Labour's policy on immigration. And the UK becomes the first country in the world to recognise parkour as a sport. Join me for those stories and more at 6:30.
There are calls for a radical shake-up of laws to protect people who are living rough or face losing their homes in our region.
Yes, the homeless charity Crisis are hoping a piece of legislation which is currently being debated by MPs will be passed this year, forcing local authorities to take active steps to help those in need.
Some councils already get extra funding to deal with the issue, like Brighton and Hove, that have been given £1.2 million. The city has the worst rate of homelessness outside London.
But there are people sleeping rough in towns and cities right across our region. Latest figures suggest around 830 people a night in our region. So, could a law change be the answer to reducing that number? Matt Price has been investigating.
You'd be in your doorway now, just bedded down and feeling a bit safer there.
John Davis has spent many a night out in the cold. The former rough sleeper turned support worker. It's his job now to help those in need. He's taken us back to his old way of life, homeless and vulnerable.
I ended up sleeping rough as a result of drug and alcohol issues that I wasn't dealing with very well. And the reason that I wanted to sleep rough was really to find a way of taking my own life.
Tonight he's walking the streets, doing his best to encourage people at risk to seek help.
How you doing? You all right, buddy?
Stuart has been sleeping outside for 6 weeks. He's declined the offer of a night at a shelter, instead choosing this shop doorway as his bed for the evening, covered by CCTV to keep him safe.
This area is come to max, so even if, God forbid, anything happens to me, it's going to be on camera up, so whoever persecutors are, we'll get done for it, you know what I mean?
Later this month, MPs will continue discussions on a proposed new law which could help people who find themselves homeless. It covers both those in temporary accommodation or living on the streets. It would mean councils have to prevent someone from becoming homeless, regardless of whether they're classed as a priority case. Authorities would have to take action to relieve the homelessness of anyone, and other public bodies would legally have to refer people at risk of losing their homes to the council.
Becoming homeless, sleeping on the streets, is a really dangerous thing to happen, really destroys an individual. So anything we can do which is about avoiding getting to that situation in the first place, whether it's mediation with the landlord or with the family, whether it's some financial advice.
The government has agreed to fund any costs that councils could face, and while there's plenty of support for the bill, the Local Government Association say it might not be the answer. They say a law change alone won't resolve homelessness, and that rising rental costs is one of the big issues which needs addressing. Some local authorities already have a package of measures in place to help, referring people to shelters like this one. If it wasn't for this centre, Stephen says he'd be sleeping outside. He's asked us not to show his face.
The main challenge is trying to keep warm. To be honest, now I'm at that age where I think I'll be like this forever.
The bill moves on to its next stage in the lawmaking process in a few weeks' time. John is hoping it gets approved this year, putting an end to homelessness, perhaps right across the country. Matt Price, ITV News.
More news now, and a soldier who died in Iraq last week will be repatriated through West Oxfordshire tomorrow. Lance Corporal Scott Hetherington of the 2nd Battalion, the Duke of Lancaster's regiment, was working as a vehicle commander in the Force Protection Platoon near Baghdad. The cortege will pass the Memorial Garden and then go to the John Radcliffe Hospital.
One of the South's best-known holiday parks has been sold. Family-owned Sandy Balls near Fordingbridge in Hampshire has been bought by UK holiday park operator Away Resorts. The group already owns the Whitecliff Bay complex on the Isle of Wight. The holiday park opened almost 100 years ago.
Meanwhile, Paultons Park near Romsey is creating more than 100 new jobs following a £9 million investment. The park will reopen next month in time for half-term.
Prostate cancer is a disease that's notoriously difficult to diagnose and kills more than 10,000 men every year. That's why a trial is underway to see if dogs can help detect it.
Well, the programme is part funded by the NHS and run by the Medical Detection Dogs charity, but there are concerns from some about just how reliable using an animal can be. With more details, Sarah Cooper.
Kiwi the Labrador is a family pet with a very good nose. Her sense of smell's being put to the test. She's in training to sniff out prostate cancer.
Once Kiwi comes into the room, she's tasked to search 8 positions on the carousel. Each one of these contains a urine sample, and in one of these samples is prostate cancer. And what Kiwi's being trained to do is detect the volatile signature for that prostate cancer. So when Kiwi detects the right prostate cancer sample, we give her a click and that signals that it's payday, so we're going to give her lots of food for it.
Kiwi's one of 8 dogs being trained using real samples from a hospital nearby. It's part of a 3-year trial run by the Medical Detection Dogs charity, and it's thought to be the largest of its kind. Kiwi's sense of smell is so good that she can sniff out the equivalent of a teaspoon of sugar inside 2 Olympic-sized swimming pools full of water. And that's why researchers here think dogs like her could make a real difference to prostate cancer diagnosis. They're hoping this trial will prove how accurately dogs can detect prostate cancer.
The current blood test for prostate cancer has a very high false positive rate. Now this means that 3 and 4 out of 4 men that have got a positive test, only 1 man's actually got the cancer. What we believe we're going to be able to provide with the dogs is a test that has a very low false positive, meaning that if the dog says that somebody has prostate cancer, then they probably have.
Researchers hope it could make diagnosis more accurate when combined with existing prostate cancer tests, but not everyone's convinced.
Even if this trial shows that the dogs that are trained here can do this reliably, how many dogs would we need? How do we train them? How long can they reliably perform for? Are they consistent day to day? So obviously if this was an electronic device, you could guarantee you could calibrate it to make sure it performed consistently. We don't know if a dog's just having a bad day.
The trial runs until 2018. Researchers hope these dogs can eventually become part of an NHS screening programme, using their sense of smell to help save lives. Sarah Cooper, ITV News.
Like thousands of children, 9-year-old Lily Harmer sent Santa a letter addressed to him at the North Pole, of course, and told him about the presents that she was hoping for.
Yes, but the way she dispatched her letter was a little unusual, and the response it produced was, well, quite extraordinary. John Ryle will explain all.
OK, let it go.
With a little help from her granddad, Lily Harmer addressed her Christmas wish list to Santa Claus, North Pole, tied it to 2 helium balloons and launched it from cliffs at Hastings.
Lily wrote this lovely message. We attached it to the balloons, and the balloons floated off very low across the West Hill, going towards the East Hill of Hastings. And that was it really. That was on the 27th of October.
I thought it was going to get stuck in a tree or pop or something like that because there's absolutely loads of trees around everywhere.
The balloons cleared the trees, but instead of heading for the North Pole, they flew over France, Belgium and Germany before touching down 800 miles from Hastings in an Austrian ski resort, where a local family found them and read the note attached. 8 weeks later, there was a delivery to Lily's home.
Christmas Eve, there was a knock at the door. The postman delivered a package the size of 2 shoeboxes, beautifully wrapped in Christmas paper with a letter to Lily.
I found loads of sweets, an advent calendar, a toy mouse, and they were all Austrian chocolates, and I tasted some and they tasted really good. And I felt really excited that actually someone's done all that for just me.
Now Lily wants to return the kindness.
We need to do something back for them because they spent all their hard work buying stuff and putting it in a box and wrapping it for us. We might give them some English chocolates, or we might give the 2 children that they have 2 toys or something like that.
She'll be sending the Austrians their present in the next few days, this time by conventional airmail. John Ryle, ITV News, Hastings.
What a brilliant story. Love a bit of English chocolate. Simon's with us now.
Send a balloon. I'll see what I can do for you. I've heard a whisper it's a good idea. But look, speaking of looking in the sky, you don't have to spot balloons. At this time of year, you can spot thousands of birds. Look at this brilliant footage.
What?
Shot at Studland by Xander, just by the Chain Ferry between 4 and 4 on Sunday. You reckon there are about 10,000 to 12,000 starlings. It doesn't say if he counted them all, so we'll believe him. But no one knows quite why they do this for certain, this murmuration. Could be sticking together offers safety in numbers, because predators such as peregrine falcons find it harder to target just one bird when they're all doing that.
How do they not bump into each other?
It's a mystery, isn't it? But they do it over their roosting site and perform just before they go to bed. So after all of that, they're knackered, which is presumably why
they do it because they know they look good.
Yeah, well, I think they know that Xander's watching with his camera. But
I'm not quite sure that was the word we were looking for.
I think it probably fits. Anyway, tired, plumb tuckered out. But other bird spotting spots. Have a look at this. A brilliant picture from Jeff here. You know what it's like when you need a drink. You just got to have one. Whether it's safe or not just because of the water, but also because you might get run over. But isn't it nice to find a positive use for a pothole at this time of year? I'm sure you've heard of the goose that laid the golden egg. Lorne thought he'd found it at Longham Lakes in Dorset. Turned out to be an almost as rare great white egret. And as for the egg, you like this joke, pass around the cigars, it's a boy. Oh! Boy with an O in it. Never mind.
I'm not sure if you'll be here tomorrow.
No.
But in the meantime, here's his forecast tonight. Simon Parkin.
From blizzards to pool, driving through Europe. Eurotunnel the Shuttle sponsors ITV Meridian weather.
So now here's the thing, it wasn't even cold today, but Sandy Saunders managed to take this picture this morning. That is a sundog, and you get that when the sun's light reflects and refracts through the ice crystals in the upper atmosphere. It's ice crystals in the lower atmosphere we have to look forward to, because we've got a weak weather front that is going to push away first thing tomorrow morning, and once it's gone, that allows the cold air to come straight down from the frozen north. So a bit of an Arctic blast coming our way. We're going to watch out for this band of rain that's going to move its way eastwards over Thursday, because as it hits the cold air there could be a bit of snow about. More on that in a moment. For tonight, well, there might be an odd spot of drizzle here and there, but it's a largely dry night. Still a lot of cloud on top of us and breezy with it, and that means the temperatures shouldn't dip too far below around 6 or 7 degrees. Tail end of the night though, that weather front arrives, so we'll be a bit cloudy and a bit damp first thing tomorrow morning, but that'll push off out of the way fairly quickly. And then behind, you can see from the breaks in the cloud, we'll see more in the way of sunny spells developing, but whilst it brightens up, it won't warm up. If anything, it'll get colder. Your temperatures of 9 10 degrees first thing tomorrow, but the temperatures will dwindle as the day goes on, as that cold air arrives and also the cold wind blows in as well. Your high tide times in Brighton just before 10 in the morning, then 10:30 in the evening, and then Thursday. A tricky day with that rain pushing eastwards. Basically, a lot of it is going to stay out through the channel, but we don't know quite how far north it's going to go. So a Met Office weather warning for a 10 to 20% chance of seeing some snow developing, most likely over the higher ground of the Downs and the Chilterns and the Cotswolds, but keep an eye on the forecast for further updates.
Eurotunnel the Shuttle sponsors ITV Meridian weather.
Now, the latest figures show the average household owes over £12,000, not including mortgages. So if you're worried about debt at the moment, ITV's money-saving expert Martin Lewis will be in Windsor tomorrow and could be able to give you some advice.
Yes, he'll be there from 11 a.m. by the Queen Victoria statue on Pescod Street to answer your questions on debt, but also on mortgages and energy savings. So if you need his help and advice, make sure you go along tomorrow morning.
And in just a moment, we've got the ITV Evening News with Mary Nightingale.
We've got a bit of a mystery newsreader on our late news tonight. Don't miss him, he's really good. But for now, from the team here at ITV Meridian, thank you very much indeed for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.